Good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public gallery. Welcome to this special council meeting being held on Thursday, the 2nd of March 2023. I declare this meeting open at 7 p.m. I'd also like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Noongar people and we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Also, I'd like to advise members of the public gallery that this meeting is being audio recorded in accordance with council policy. If you are asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting, this will be audio recorded. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. Item 1 on tonight's agenda is attendances and apologies, of which we have nil.
Madam President, I have apologies from the Director of Development Services and the Director of Infrastructure Services.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We will list those two apologies. Item 2 is public question time. Can I please ask Mr. Bill Denham to come forward and ask your question this evening, please?
Thank you, Madam President, councillors. If the Shire's current submission is accepted and implemented by the Minister, what happens if one of the North Ward councillors is elected to the properly elected President's position, given that there will be no election held in that ward? What happens with the vacancy that would create?
I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond to your question, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Mr. Denham. So under the current legislation, section 2.32 of the Local Government Act 95 provides that where a sitting councillor successfully contests an election for the office of President elected at large, an extraordinary election is held for the vacated council position. Under 4.9 of the Act, the extraordinary election must be held on a date no later than 4 months after the vacancy occurs, unless otherwise approved to be held later by the Electoral Commissioner. On the 23rd of February 2023, the Local Government Amendment Bill 2023 was tabled in Parliament. The bill proposes reforms that will eliminate the need for an extraordinary election in specific circumstances where an otherwise unsuccessful candidate from an election could be appointed to the vacant office. However, in the scenario presented in your question, an extraordinary election would need to be held under section 2.32 as amended. This is because the scenario you outline, there is no election in the ward that would create a pool of unsuccessful candidates to draw upon to fill the vacancy. As the bill does not propose changes to section 4.9 of the Act, the extraordinary election would need to be held on a date no later than 4 months after the vacancy occurs, unless otherwise approved to be held later by the Electoral Commissioner.
Thank you, President.
Thank you, Mr. Denham. Under the Local Government Act, we are to allow 15 minutes for public question time, and we have not reached that mark at tonight's meeting yet. Is there any public questions from the public gallery floor this evening? Mr. Tomlinson?
Welcome, everyone. I was just curious why you're going through all this when everything was voted on previously. It's the problem that you're scared something's going to go wrong and you won't be here.
Not at all, Mr. Tomlinson. There has been new information that. I'm sorry. Can you please just step back from the microphone?
I'm scared and I want to change things back to suit them the way we read it.
Mr. Tomlinson, you can read the information any way that you choose. There is new information that has been made available to council, which has brought about tonight's meeting.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Denham?
Regarding my first question, Fraser, what would be the cost of an extraordinary election then if we had to have one? To the rate?
I might request the Manager of Governance may be able to provide some assistance, but my recall is it was approximately $30,000 for the recent election.
Thank you. Ms Brazier, would you like to come forward and ask a question, please?
Lisa Brazier, PO Box 80, Mundijong. Good evening, councillors. My question tonight is, what is the cost to the ratepayer to conduct tonight's special council meeting to address item 6.1 notice of motion?
We'll take that question on notice, Ms Brazier, and a response will be mailed to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mrs Bond.
Consultation, was it discussed, alluded to, that the wards for the SJ Shire be removed? What grounds do you have for this revocation, and is this legal? On notice?
Can you please repeat the first part of your question?
Where is the public consultation? Was it discussed, alluded to, that the wards for the SJ Shire be removed?
Discussed where?
With public, with us, people. Where was that discussed?
Can I please ask members of the public gallery to remain quiet while other people are asking their questions?
Is this so hard?
Yeah.
Madam President, Mr. Bond, thank you for the question. I don't think there's been any consultation on the notice of motion that's before council tonight, but certainly the option of having no wards was an option in the discussion paper. I'm looking to the Manager of Governance for confirmation of that. It was certainly an option that was put out for consultation as part of that. Thank you.
Will we see decisions like this pertaining to other matters of SJ Council when certain councillors don't like the result after the fact? Another one on notice?
I actually don't know what you mean, Mrs Bond.
Well, it's pretty clear.
Good.
I'll tell you what, I will give Ken a copy of these. Did SJ Council advise or seek the written opinion from the local government minister regarding the revocation of this important matter? And if so, what was his response? On notice?
Mr Martin?
I can answer that. Thank you, Mrs. Bond. So certainly, I contacted the Minister's office and the department, asking them about that, and that's reflected in the officer comment of the report.
Theory about getting rid of a couple of councillors or one councillor, we shouldn't believe what he said.
Oh, I don't want to comment on that.
Is there any further public questions from the floor this evening?
On a different sort of thing, financial conflict. I know that, you know, if you get a gift or anything like that, or you say do a fire break for a ratepayer, you've got to declare a financial conflict. You earn an income from being a councillor. Where does that cross or not cross?
I'll ask the Manager of Governance to respond to that question if I can, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Denham, for the question. Under 563 of the Local Government Act, there are a series of exemptions that apply from financial interests. Two of those relate to a fee or allowance that a councillor receives, and there's a second one that provides a broad exemption from financial interests as a result of becoming a member of an organisation established under the legislation, which council would be. Nevertheless, the advice from the department, which is something that I also explain to every elected member that I encounter, is that matters of interest are best managed by themselves, albeit that in these instances, the department has reiterated that they believe that these exemptions apply.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public questions from the floor? We haven't moved to statement time as yet. Is there any further public questions from the floor this evening? There being no further public questions, public question time has concluded at 7:10 p.m. Item 3 is public statement time. Can I please ask Mr. Bill Denham to come forward and read his statement this evening?
At the special council meeting of 24th of October 2022, the majority of council resolved to undertake a ward and representation review and consult with the SJ community on how they want to be represented by council. When the special council meeting of 30th of January 2023 came along, it was clear that neither of those things had been done. Council did not conduct a proper ward and representation review, as the report did not consider alternative ward structures. It was simply an all or nothing approach. Council did not adequately consult with the community, leaving the comment period open for the bare minimum amount of time and running it over the Christmas and New Year period. It was unsurprising then that council only received 6 submissions from verified ratepayers. The whole process has been rushed by council and muddied by misleading and false commentary. While councillors around the table often state how important it is to consult with the community, their decisions suggest differently. Following the January SCM, I put together a submission to go to the Minister of Local Government, which within just over a week was signed and supported by close to 350 verified ratepayers of this community. In short, the submission asked the Minister to support a directly elected president and put the Shire of the reform pathway that will declare all 8 council positions vacant and for election at the October 2023 general election. This will give the council a clean slate it needs to implement the Local Government Act reforms. I hope councillors will consider the voices of nearly 350 ratepayers who signed and supported my submission to the Minister. As a fellow ratepayer said during the public statement time at the October SCM, when making decisions on the local government reforms, all councillors should consider what is best for the ratepayer and resident, not own personal needs, no matter how much it may hurt. I'm asking you tonight to recognise that the process council followed was flawed and that the community has expressed a clear preference on how they want to move forward with these reforms. Councillors, do the right thing, listen to the community and put this council back on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denham. Ms. Holmes, have you got a statement? Thank you.
Okay, I support what Bill Denham has said. As one of the signatories of the community submissions, council is here to represent the community. That means listening to the community, not what they want.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Is there any further statements from the floor? Is there any further public statements from the floor?
Word revocation means the official cancellation of a decree, decision or promise. Stupidity of this type of interference in a democratic decision shows how toxic Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire Council is. When desperation rears its ugly head, just so certain people can manipulate the vote to get re-elected at a council election, we all need to be vigilant. We have just had to deal with postal ballot theft, and now certain people have come up with a new deceit. I am enthused that the President and her followers want all positions declared vacant at the next council elections in October 2023. No good comes of deceit, and this will clean out the council in more ways than one. The word democracy comes from the Greek word demos, meaning people, kratos meaning power. So it is reasonable to believe democracy as being power of the people, not the power of 1, 4 or 5 individuals.
Thank you, Mrs. Bond. Is there any further public questions from the floor this evening? Public statement, sorry. That concludes public statement time at 7:15 p.m. Item 4 is petitions and deputations, of which there is nil. Item 5 is declaration of councillors and officers' interests, of which there is nil. Item 6 is receipt of reports. Councillors, I have emailed out an alternate motion this evening, which I will move for item 6.1, notice of motion revocation. SCM.
Can I please put
zero,
a
zero.
procedural motion, understanding orders 11.1A, please?
Can you please repeat the number, councillor Duggan?
11.1A, thanks, that the council proceed to the next business. My reason being is because I believe that we can't table this item as it's in breach of standing orders. Thanks.
Councillor Duggan, why do you believe that it is a breach of standing orders?
Standing order 3.1, business to be specified on notice paper point 2 says no business is to be transacted at a special meeting of the council other than that given in the notice as the purpose of the meeting. On the front of the agenda, it clearly states that the purpose is to consideration of the following report: notice of motion revocation SCM 001/00123, SCM 002/01/23 and SCM 003/01/23. Considering submissions received on the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale ward and representation review SJ 4038. The alternate motion put forward and is in no way a reflection of that purpose for this evening's meeting. Thanks.
Mr. Martin, can we please have some guidance from the Manager of Governance?
Yes, Madam President, I might just need a couple of minutes to consult with the Director of Corporate Services and the Manager of Governance.
Thank you.
Madam President, officers believe that that there is the capacity to consider the alternative motion under the heading, as we normally consider other alternative motions when councillors submit notices of motion. However, we also believe that the procedural motion moved by councillor Duggan should be considered, and I would remind councillors that there's no debate on that. The mover of the motion gets to speak for 5 minutes, and then it's put to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thanks, Madam President.
Councillor, can you please wait until we get a seconder for the motion?
Thank you.
Can I please have a seconder for the procedural motion as moved? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Councillor Duggan.
Thanks, Madam President. We've all received emails during the week querying the original notice of motion if we could discuss it and bring it to the table, and it was voted no. I just feel that this is no different, that nowhere in our purpose does it give us the option of talking about a submission. If it had said considering submissions received and an ongoing process from that, I could accept that, but there is no mention. It just asks for a revocation. So as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't fulfil the 3.1(2) of our standing orders, and our standing orders are our law. It's as easy as that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? 2, 3, 4. Motion is carried 5-4. Thank you, councillors.
Can I have votes recorded, please?
Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded as requested by councillor Duggan? Thank you, Minute Secretary. Item 7 is motions of which notice has been given, as which there is nil. Item 8 is urgent business, of which there is nil. It brings us to item 9, closure, and I declare this meeting closed at 7:21 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Please have a safe trip home.